Hi, my name is Michelle Berry. I am an environmental historian and I teach in the history department at the University of Arizona.
Okay, Michelle. So anyway, let's talk about nature.
Woohoo!
We both like camping and hiking.
Yes, we do.
So let's start with you and tell us where you grew up and maybe
I
how that-
grew up on a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere, high in the mountains in Colorado, in the western side of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and that's really where I came to love the out of doors because I didn't have much of a choice.
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot else to do.
Not exactly a city girl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My original hometown had 700 people in it, and I
Oh.
lived about 27 miles outside of that town.
Huh.
So
Okay,
I was
well,
outside a lot.
I'm from a very different, I'm like suburban, middle class, major metropolitan area growing up. But I spent, I also lived in rural areas, but it was always, kind of I didn't I grew up with it only in terms of getting out on weekends and stuff like that.
Right.
Which I guess is what most people do.
Yeah, I think especially as we move into the 21st century, that's increasingly people's experience. I grew up in Colorado in like the 70s and 80s, and everybody I knew was a hunter or a hiker or a camper. And then in the 90s, backpacking became very cool, and then it sort of gets replaced by mountain biking. So just a very recreational culture.
Right.
Which is, I think, not as common increasingly. Even in Colorado, I don't think it's as common as people live in bigger cities and it's harder to get to the out of doors. People are having a slightly different experience with nature.
Yeah, I wonder where that's going to go in the future and how people are going to see nature in terms, with the lesson. I mean, especially not just in this country, but in a lot of the world. For example, China has had the largest movement of people from the farms to the cities in like world history.
Right. Yeah.
So now you've got these generations of people growing up in concrete, rather than in the fields.
Yeah, and it matters, and a lot. I think there is, and I'm not going to be able to cite studies or anything, but I think there is a consensus in the scientific community that nature is important. That being out of doors does important things for our senses and for our health. And so the built environment doesn't quite do that in the same way that the non-built environment does.
Yes, I often do use that biophilia hypothesis and give, like The Last Child in the Woods and those kinds of studies and books that are kind of popular literature, but also academic in a way.
Absolutely. And then the notion that we can replace nature with, sort of the artificial experience of nature on the phone, right? If you're playing a video game and it occurs in a forest, is that the same as actually being in a forest? The answer is no.
Going to the nature company at the mall.
Exactly. The zoo is not the same as nature, etc.
Well, you probably feel the same way I do about this, but I feel extremely fortunate to have grown up the way I did.
Yes, absolutely.
And my father, who was born in the 20s in rural Vermont, when he was very old, he was reflecting on his life and how happy he was to have grown up in this bucolic, natural world, where it was very simple and very nice and very in touch with nature. And he could go out and identify like 20 different birds just by listening to their songs.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, that's something you just can't learn without having lived it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And consistently, right? Like you can't just go out once a month for a hike and become sort of that connected to a particular biome or ecosystem. You have to really live in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess we're losing that.
I think we are a bit, and we're mostly, I don't know, I mean, certainly we're losing nature in that because of all the urbanization, but I think we're also losing the cultural value that it's important. Which is very weird to me, right?
Problematic.
That I increasingly see in my students a real fear of nature. Right, like they're just petrified of a bug that won't hurt them, because they're so clueless, and they think, oh my goodness, it's going to bite me, even though it's never going to bite you.
Yeah, they freak out when something's crawling on their arm.
Totally.
Well, we're going hiking this weekend with a couple of other teachers, and I are taking our students. I mean, not hiking, camping.
Nice.
We're going camping on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh my God.
And unfortunately, the forecast is for 100 degrees.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's like 102 or something.
Yeah, right. So
they'll love it.
That's going to be kind of difficult. I mean, we could go up into the mountains, but we figure we won't be able to a spot on a hot weekend, without really staking it out in advance.
Right.
So, but anyway, getting back to this fear of nature idea, I've had to sort of counsel them and reassure them that everything's gonna be fine.
You're gonna be good.
Because I've shown them my classes pictures of rattlesnakes and stuff like this, and they're just worried that something's gonna get them.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And that's what you're showing them.
And so one of them said, "Well, at least you'll be there to protect us."
Yeah, right.
as though going camping is more dangerous than going downtown.
I was gonna say walking down Congress, right?
Exactly.
At 12 a.m. on Saturday. That's more dangerous.
Right.
That's hilarious. Well, it'll be very fun and very good for them. And I think that's just the thing. I think a lot of it's based in ignorance, right? And I don't mean that to sound super judgy, but like people just don't do it, so they're scared of it.
Right. It's
Once
the unknown.
they go, they're
like the biggest fear is the unknown.
That's right.
Right.
And they get out there and they do it, and it's super fun. And especially hiking, you get some exercise. Those endorphins get going, and you start, you feel like, oh wait,
feel
that was
good.
Really cool.
You feel good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I look back on my life and some of the the moments that I felt the most content and the happiest, the one is like some outside somewhere,
Yeah, right.
And it's always like, and it's not, I'm not that family oriented, so I don't really get that much out of being around family and people. I'm kind of a loner, but there's moments when I feel the best and when I'm happy. I'm just out somewhere, in the mountains or the desert or something, and then I had these, I was like, this, I feel like I'm connected to the world,
right.
I'm connected to nature,
yeah.
and I just feel good,
yeah.
and I feel like there's a sense of permanence, and there's a sense of stability in the world,
yep.
and all the stupid things that we humans do
yes.
is kind of superfluous and unimportant.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of the stuff that obsesses us day to day sort of just disappears when you're out there, right?
Yeah,
so all of the injustice that you might be fired up about, or poor political leadership that you might be obsessing about,
all the things that you're worried about,
all the things that are constantly coming across your feed and whatever social media
they don't
you
affect
follow.
you in such a deep way.
That's right.
You think, well, we can deal with this somehow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this was probably still going to be here. When humans are not maybe the center of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that the humans are not the center of the world is I think an important theme in my life, and how I realized that who we are in the universe, and how people hate to hear this, but how insignificant we really are.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And you're out there in nature. Like one time I was climbing a mountain, a big mountain, a 5,000 meter mountain, and I felt. This is, I always hear people describing nature in this touchy-feely way, and how, this kind of almost spiritual thing. And sometimes I roll my eyes when I hear that kind of stuff.
Right.
But then when I had that experience, and I was climbing this 5,000 meter mountain, and I felt the immensity of that mountain.
Yes.
And it was just like, I've never quite understood when people were raving about these things, and now I get it.
Yeah,
it's a spiritual thing.
Yeah,
and it really puts you in perspective.
Yeah,
on your place in the world.
That's right.
And at the same time, it's oddly reassuring too.
Yeah. And it's weird because, we can look at Thoreau, right, as he's writing about hiking up Mount Katahdin in Maine.
Yeah.
And we think of him as this big environmentalist, and he hated it. It was a horrible experience for him, right? It was cold, and it was hard, and he was he was mad, and right, and he's sort of this transcendentalist thinker is going, wait, nature is kind of crappy, right? It's sort of not as great as everybody thinks.
Well, yeah.
And that's an important part.
No, it is. It's a realistic assessment.
Yes.
Because, for example, what Disney has done to nature.
Exactly.
Is, like my ex-wife, when she was growing up with Disney films.
Oh, interesting,
and
right.
How she saw nature and animals was that kind of nice garden, peaceable kingdom kind of
right.
And then when you watch a real nature documentary, or you're out there in the forest seeing something, and it's violent, and they're going through stress and pain, and it's like, this is the reality. It's a harsh world. And when you're doing it, it's hard, and it makes you vulnerable, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, and all that's cool too, because when you come out the other side of it, you've survived it, and that makes you stronger, and also sort of is such an important thing. And able to deal with our petty human world. Right. Exactly. Right. Yes. All right. Thanks. Good talking to you. Thank you. You too.